I've had a really good day today, not least of all because this morning I came up with something of a breakthrough, really, in this idea that I've been thinking about for about 2.5 years. This idea of a space elevator, this first stage of a space elevator, which would be this huge tower stretching up to about 120,000 feet or 100,000 feet or whatever number of hundreds of thousand feet we could get to before our jet engines stopped working, before our scramjets stopped working. And this is an idea that I came up with in Prodrome about 2.5 years ago. This idea of a space tower supported with dirigibles, i.e. lift balloons, and originally steered against the 150 mile an hour jet stream winds of the stratosphere using jet engines. The breakthrough was a really simple idea, but this is very often how things progress. I think it can sometimes take years and years to get the small details of the thing correct. And this idea that I came up with this morning was to use the jet engines for lift, which should have been obvious at the time, I suppose, or should have been apparent to me that we need to do this before this point, I think. But nonetheless, I eventually got there, I think, with the idea, and I think, and AI thinks as well, not that anyone considers that amounts to anything much, but AI considers this to be indeed possible now that I'm invoking jet engines to provide lift and to take tension away from the structure. The structure would of course have to be built out of the strongest materials possible, I think, such that we're then able to cut down on the amount of fuel used. I would insist on keeping the lifter balloons also to further cut down on the amount of fuel that it would consume. And the project after that would entail a second stage launched into space, and we would connect up stage 1 and stage 2 with a third stage constructed in the mesosphere by dangling cable from space and attaching it to the first stage. And to provide support for the stage in the mesosphere, we would not be able to use jet engines. We would have to use rocket engines because there is not enough air in the mesosphere to burn fuel up there. Now, I obviously can't do this alone. What I'm good at, I think, is I'm very good at the big picture thinking. I'm quite capable of coming up with the large scale plan and the rough outlines of how things work. I'm rather good, I think, at branding, and I come up with things like good names for things. And but I have a lot of deficits in a lot of areas. I have no coding ability, no programming ability at all. My mathematical abilities are somewhat limited. I'm not particularly good at sales or marketing. I have lots of deficits in lots of different areas, but the company name I came up with, Astrodyne Rocketjet, I think is a really cool name. I think it's cooler than SpaceX, and I think the big picture of this project, the space elevator project, now that I've come up with this this innovation of using jet engines to provide lift, I believe that this is possible. I think that this is possible, and if it's possible, we should do it, I think. This would dramatically improve access to space. It would allow us to do a lot more in space, get far larger machines built in space. Our payloads to orbit could be far more regular and far larger eventually, I think, and it would dramatically ultimately reduce the cost of space travel. I don't think it would eliminate rockets entirely, and I don't really want it to eliminate rockets entirely because I really like rockets also. But it would create an ancillary means of getting into space, or it would what's the word I'm looking for? It would complement rocket technology. Great. It would allow us to do a lot more in space with larger payloads and so on. And maybe in the future we build more than one space elevator, or progressively over time expand the capabilities of the space elevator that we build. But the general thrust of this video is that I obviously can't do this all on my own. I'm a limited human being. I'm one person. I will work very hard to bring this about, this piece of technology, this what would end up being by far the largest civil engineering project that we've ever undertaken. So anyone who's got a background in civil engineering, structural engineering, aeronautical engineering, aerospace, whatever, like, you'd be very welcome to apply for a position with Astrodyne Rocketjet, I think. It's a startup, so I have no money, unfortunately, and to be involved in this project, like, I'm afraid to say I wouldn't be able to pay you anything. That's the other thing. No money at all. I mean, and the other part of it would be the business management element of things and trying to source investment from places, even people with like a legal background or a marketing background or a sales background. Need people like that also to try and get funding for this, and think about people who could fund it. The obvious choice would be someone like Elon Musk, since he has $860 billion at his disposal. He has a very large team of scientists and engineers building rockets already. So there's a lot of a great knowledge base there when it comes to rocket technology. And we'd need all sorts of people like that, since this is something at the confluence of civil engineering, aeronautical engineering, and various other types of engineering. And it is a huge challenge, obviously. It'll be very, very expensive to get this done. It will be very, very impressive, though, if we bring this about. And the realization I had this morning, which I didn't have over the past 2.5 years, when I kind of semi-abandoned Astrodyne Rocketjet, and I didn't renew the domain names or anything like that for the little website that I built for it. But which I should have done, I think, frankly, and I should have worked on the website a bit harder. But yeah, I realize now this can be done. Like, there are no limits really to how tall we can build, and that is a very exciting prospect, I think. Using aircraft technology, really, jet engines, a building with jet engines that form part of its structure. A big outstanding problem, I think, is how we get fuel up there. We might have to use the elevators on the structure to transport fuel up to the engines, as we may not be able to pump fuel that high, which, there's a sort of limit on how far we can pump water, which is about 15 meters above ground level, I think. I don't know quite how they do it in skyscrapers, but maybe we can adapt that sort of technology as well to this project. But yeah, there's potential. We can at least build that high, I think. And yeah, the physics of it makes sense. AI, which is very, very good at solving physics problems, in fairness to it, has given a yes to this idea and has admitted that it is possible, given what we understand about physics and engineering. And I think, again, that we need to use the strongest materials possible, the highest tensile strength, best Young's modulus, and to cut down on the number of engines we need to attach to it that would be taking up some of the weight. Additionally, lift balloons, to take up more of the strain. And because I think, we might as well, I think, because we'll be burning fuel constantly to keep it operational. And the lift balloons will cut down on fuel to some extent. So yeah, anyone who's a dab hand at programming, I need you, computer modeling, design, any kind of engineer really who's interested in the project, any kind of space engineer who fancies working on a space elevator. I need you, because I lack a lot of skill, really. I very good at coming up with the ideas and concepts and things, and working with the base of scientific materials engineering understanding that I have at the moment, which is incomplete also. I don't know everything. I need more people with more expertise, but it seems this can be done. And if we can do this sort of thing, I certainly think we should be doing it, and that we shouldn't accept any kind of regression in our technical capabilities. and it could lead to a phenomenal future in which more ordinary people ultimately have access to space, and where anyone can go to space if they want to. And that's the sort of world I want to be living in. And we can have far larger ships being built in space. It could attach to a dockyard where we transport people often to and from, say, Mars or the moons of the outer solar system. And, you know, this is the sort of thing that really inspires me. And it's the sort of thing that inspires Elon Musk also. And I think one day of, you know, manned missions sailing past Jupiter or something and seeing that up close with human eyes. And I want to live in that sort of world. So if you're interested, please leave a comment or get in touch with me over social media if you can. You can find me on Facebook, for instance. My email is cottlesam@protonmail.com, which I'm having trouble accessing at the moment. So you can also get me on scwindtunnel lowercase @gmail.com if you're interested in sending a little application covering letter just to outline your skills. And yeah, I'd be very interested in hearing from you, hopefully. And you know, hopefully I'm not such an arse to work with. I won't work you to death like Elon Musk does with his employees, because you know, I believe that 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort, which is sort of true and very often. But yeah, all sorts of specifics will need to be worked out with this, like where we need to put stress tensors on the structure and the sort of computer programming the structure will need to have in order to steer it against these high winds of the upper stratosphere, and to make sure to detect how much strain exactly is on each individual bit of the structure at any given time, and thereby, you know, talk to the jet engines which provide the thrust to counteract that tension, and all this sort of thing that we need to thoroughly model it using computers before it could be built, obviously. And I can't do that. That's not my area of expertise. So I need people to work with me on this to do this sort of thing. So yeah, please get in touch via those means if you're interested. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you.